What is up, everybody? Happy Wednesday. I am here, as you can see, joined by a very special guest. We're going to do a little bit of a
special. Thanks.
Yeah, we're going to do a little bit of a different Benzinga Live today that I'm really excited about. We've got some exciting news. This is Patrick Lane, our executive vice president, head of events. Patrick, tell me why you're joining me on this desk today, why you're joining me on Benzinga Live. I'm not lucky enough to usually have you on the show, but today I am.
You know what? I have to say, you guys that get to watch and hang out with Aaron every day are lucky. I rarely get to sit behind this desk. It's a lot of fun. I feel very important right now with the city of Detroit behind me. So thanks for the opportunity, pal. Some of you may remember me. I used to co-host our Cannabis Insider podcast with Elliot and Javi. They kicked me out. They don't like me anymore. I don't know what the story is. You'll have to ask them. But guys, some big news today, right? No one knows this. You are the first to hear about this, so I'm bringing it to you live on the air with a few of our colleagues. And I'm bringing on a few executives today to talk about this news in a segment, a special episode of Cannabis Insider here at Benzinga. Are you ready for this, Aaron?
Woo! I am ready.
You want me to say what it is?
All right, let's get right to it. I'm ready to hear the news.
All right, man. So listen up. We at Benzinga care about what's relevant in any industry, right? But one of the industries that we are most carefully and strategically following is the cannabis space. We've been in it for a long time now, and we feel like it's important every time something happens that is a game changer in this industry to bring it to our audience. So here's what's happening. Twitter, Elon Musk's Twitter has allowed cannabis advertising to begin, right? We've heard some rumblings of this. There's been some test cases over the last couple weeks, some major companies being involved in those test cases. The Benzinga Cannabis Capital Conference, happening April 11th and 12th in Miami at the Fontainebleau, will be the first public venue for Twitter's executives to come and talk about cannabis advertising on their platform. Right, I am thrilled to have Alexa Alianello and Rohan Rutroy, the U.S. Sales and Partnerships lead, and then the head of Twitter Next, come and keynote our conference in Miami. They're going to tell us everything cannabis companies need to know about how to advertise on their platform, right? What's cool, what isn't, and how these companies who have been traditionally left out of the mix now have the opportunity to advertise. I mean, how crazy is that?
Yeah, I mean, so correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, Twitter's gonna be like the biggest social media platform that's allowing cannabis ads on its platform. The only, like, you can't do it on Meta, on Instagram or Facebook or anything like that.
Let me give you an idea of how crazy this is. We run a conference with the word cannabis in the title. We're not a cannabis company. We have problems even advertising our conference on LinkedIn, on other social media platforms, because the word cannabis is in the title, right? That's insane. So some of these restrictions are being lifted on Twitter, and I'm calling it here. I think this is the catalyst for all social media companies to allow cannabis companies to advertise.
I mean, if you can advertise on these other platforms for like alcohol and other stuff, why would you not be able to for cannabis?
Why wouldn't you?
But I have a lot more thoughts on this, Patrick, but I do see our first guest hanging out backstage. Who are we going to be talking to?
So let's bring him on, Aaron. Rob Sechrist is one of my oldest and best friends in this space. Not old age, Rob, so don't think of it that way, man. Rob is the president of Pelorus Equity Group. And the guy is a wealth of knowledge. Let's go ahead and get him up on the screen if we can. The goal for us here is that we're bringing on people who not only have the pulse of the industry at their fingertips, but also people who can give us other relevant insights into what's happening in the industry. Rob knows the investment side. He's largely backing the space with Pelorus, one of the best private REITs around. Rob can tell you more about his company and what he's seeing. Rob, come on. There he is.
Good morning.
Mr. Sechrist himself. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. I'm not sure what's bigger news, a Twitter or I've been hanging out with an executive vice president. I just thought of
Oh
you as
my
Patrick
God.
Lane, my buddy that always takes care of everything for the conferences.
Do we want to compare city backgrounds? Look at ours here in Detroit and then look at Rob's. Rob always has the coolest backgrounds, the coolest stories. The guy is everywhere. How are you today, my friend?
Doing well, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Yes. So what do you think about this? Give us just your initial insights, your thoughts on Twitter, and then I want to hear more about Pelorus. I want to hear more about what you think is relevant and what's going on in cannabis right now.
Sure. So regarding Twitter, I always try to take it a little bit more broader first and then more granular. I think Elon is doing a great job of now becoming the outlier of what the norms are in social media, bringing on controversial people or bringing on people that weren't controversial that just got omitted, and whatever he is doing is now forcing the other platforms to reconsider what their stance is, and if they don't move, they're going to be left out. And so he's the outlier, but he's going to become the standard. And so that's the first mover advantage of what you get there. And I think that he's being consistent in that thought process with everything he's doing, including doing cannabis. I didn't know Twitter was going to be at the conference until I just heard it from you. That's amazing. I think it's a massive opportunity for everybody in this industry to figure out what's the best use of Twitter for them. For us, we are continuing trying to educate the industry, investors, and just provide a better, deeper understanding of the sector so that they can make better decisions on how and when they want to be in the industry.
Very important, man, and well said. I think what Elon's doing, and we all remember when he smoked a joint with Joe Rogan on the podcast, right? I can't remember how many years ago that was now.
It was probably 2018, I want to say.
28, God.
5 years?
I'm getting old. But 2018, man, you're talking about a guy who's been at the forefront of a lot of things and is now going to be the first social media company to jump into the space and allow what has been a very nascent and prohibited industry to come to the forefront. I mean, cannabis was the #1 food and beverage item searched on Twitter. I mean, above tobacco, above alcohol, above everything else. That's insane to have that kind of clarity, right? That kind of data point as well. I mean, Elon is smart for being able to give the people on Twitter what they want, what they're looking for, right? Yeah. So Rob, I appreciate the insight, man. Give us a sense of what Pelorus is doing right now for the audience who may not know who you guys are and what you do. And then let's jump into just recent news in your mind, what you think is really important for people following the cannabis space to know about.
Yeah, so Pelorus is an asset manager that specializes in the cannabis sector, primarily through our private credit fund that is the Pelorus Fund, which is a private mortgage REIT. Through that vehicle and prior to forming that vehicle in 2016, we've issued about $540 million in the sector through credit secured by commercial real estate across the country. It's been an interesting ride for us. We were the first dedicated lender in the sector, the first to launch a fund, the first to become a private mortgage REIT, the first to get investment grade rated, first to do private bond offerings, all kinds of firsts. We're hoping to have some more firsts to announce for you at your conference that we're working on right now. It's difficult when you're out on the cutting edge of forming, doing things for the first time that haven't been done. So far, we've been successful at everyone. We've tried to crack a new glass ceiling, and we never want to announce that until we're sure we've got it done. But there's some awesome things happening behind the scenes, happy to get as detailed as we want here and at the conference.
Yeah, so you guys, Rob is speaking at the conference. He's one of my keynote speakers. And Rob, not to put too fine a point on this, and especially for, I mean, Aaron, you're following the space, but sort of on the outside looking in, I would say this to anybody, right? It's tough to find your way through the quagmires that sometimes come in a nascent industry, right? Something that is really building from the ground up. I would highly recommend talking to Rob Sechrist. Talk to him for 5 minutes. Grab him at the conference. You'll see him there. You'll get to watch him up on stage talking about specifically what he thinks is happening in this industry, what the opportunities are, how he's diving in with Pelorus. But go look at what Pelorus is doing. Like you see a lot of the other funds in the space, we won't name their names, right? Some of the other REITs in this space, many of which I think, not to get too in the weeds here, Rob, they're struggling, right? And you've been very, very smart about how you've approached this industry, who you've worked with, how you've structured your deals. Just a wealth of knowledge. So, Rob, I appreciate that, man, and I appreciate you coming to Miami. Give me a sense of what's top of mind for you in this industry with the minute or two that we have left right now.
Sure. So, our biggest concern right now is all of the cannabis-related depositors across the nation that are forced into non-systemically important banks and are struggling with where to move their assets to hit to be within the FDIC limit of 250,000. It's just not possible when you're a large fund manager and you have funds flowing in and out at all the times. And a lot of cannabis cannabis-related businesses can't stay under that 250,000 as well. And so, what I think is top of mind and most important to know is that there are banks that are able to insure more than 250,000. There are our bank, which is Needham Bank out of Massachusetts, was a flight to safety for many Silicon Valley banks. Apparently, Boston was the second largest hub for Silicon Valley Bank and depositors. And I think one of the reasons for that was not only did they manage their balance sheet well and be diversified, but they also have the depositor insurance fund, which insures over 250,000. It's my understanding that as long as the bank doesn't supersede 1.5 billion in total deposits, that everything is 100% insured. And when you're a fund like us is managing at times tens of millions, hundreds of millions in our account at one time, when we close something massive or have a big offering closed or something like that, that's massively important for us to think of how we manage our treasury accounts and how we do cash management. It was only until last year that we were able to get Interactive Brokers to allow us to finally onboard to manage our cash where we previously would only just sat there idle.
That's amazing. So things, obviously the banking crisis, SVB rather, is top of mind for everyone right now. Aaron, how does that strike you? What Rob just said about deposits?
I think it makes a lot of sense, and it's something that I've talked to people in the banking industry about. A lot of people are like, well, why don't companies just like spread around their accounts to where they're all 250,000 insured? It's like logistically that just doesn't really make sense. And so it's put a lot of companies, I think, in a tougher position. And like Rob said, already when you had a lot of the big banks kind of shutting out some of these cannabis companies and cannabis funds, it puts them in an even more kind of precarious situation if you don't have access to some of those big banks. So it just puts more pressure, I think, on the federal government to figure out how it's going to handle these companies, and we need that federal legalization. And there's no reason, again, like to draw back to the alcohol comparison, like all these huge American beer and alcohol companies, like why should the American cannabis companies be treated any differently? I don't understand it whatsoever. But hopefully I'm very optimistic, especially with like my generation and younger people. I think see things more so the way I do, if that makes sense, Rob.
If I could add a point to that, most cannabis deposits, in fact, everyone I know of, has minimum deposit thresholds you must maintain. And so in many of those accounts, they don't allow you to have another primary bank. So the option of spreading it around is not possible unless you're creating different tax IDs in different entities or trusts or things like that. And that's not,
Got it.
It's just not manageable. That high level thought process that a retail investor might have to say is not really effective in this sector.
Yeah, so it's not only is it not logistic, it's not possible. So specifically for the cannabis companies. But Rob, this has been some great information, great insights. I know there will be this and a lot more discussed at the cannabis conference in Miami. I'm going to be there. Patrick's going to be there. We're stoked about it. I hope you're excited as well.
Super excited.
Can't wait to see you, my friend. Thank you very much. All right, let's bring up Elliot and Javi, our Cannabis Insider hosts. We're going to move to our next guest rather quickly. But guys, any quick reactions?
Lots to cover. I mean, in terms of Rob, you nailed it on the head. I mean, smartest guy in the space, and I hope he's still on backstage and hearing that. But it's exciting. I think he brings a nice investment standpoint and viewpoint to that.
Yeah, I mean,
Great.
honestly, for me, all of this news is very exciting, and I think it puts a lot of pressure on our other social media platforms, because Twitter will be getting all these ad dollars.
This is my favorite game to play, Patrick.
Hit me.
Where in the world is Javier joining us from today?
I know. Where are you?
Wait, no, let's guess. I want to see some guesses.
Well,
in the
I know.
chat.
I
okay,
shouldn't guess.
you shouldn't guess
Yeah.
then. I have no clue. I'm gonna guess Colombia.
No, but almost. Same letter. First letter. You got it.
Same letter. C. Cancun.
No,
Mexico.
not the same sound. Not the same sound, Aaron.
Oh, okay.
Broaden your mind.
Say it again.
Yes, sir.
Chile.
Yes, sir.
Close,
We
to,
came
close
make-
to Argentina.
very close. We came here to
why?
make
Yeah, you gotta say
in
why.
Congress. Exactly. Do I have a lot of delay here? Maybe
Some.
It's a
You
hotel in-
definitely have some delay. Go ahead.
Okay, so we're in Chile to make a case for cannabis legalization in front of Congress. We were there yesterday. We spoke to representatives and senators and secretaries and advisors, and it was awesome. It was great, and they were very open to it. And they asked a bunch of Benzinga Cannabis Capital Conference. They want to meet up with makers as well to get their thoughts in sync. So very interesting stuff brewing. Stay tuned.
Awesome. Well, thank you, fellas. I want to take a quick commercial break and say bzcannabis.com. That's bzcannabis.com is where you can find more out about our conference. Again, April 11th and 12th. Thank you, producer AT. You have a discount code to use today and today only to celebrate our news with Twitter. It is the word Twitter. We're really imaginative here. TWITTER. bzcannabis.com. If you put that in, you're going to get 35% off our tickets just today only. Okay. Thank you very much, fellas. We're going to move on. I think let's go ahead and bring up our next guest, Howard Schacter from MariMed. Producer AT, roll it. What is up, my friend?
I am so excited to join you guys today. Congrats on the news.
Thank you, man. Thank you. So Howard Schacter, Chief Communications Officer for MariMed. Howard, you've been in the industry a hot second, man. You're also on the comms and marketing side of the house. Very, very aligned with this type of news. Again, Twitter allowing cannabis advertising, Twitter keynoting our conference in Miami. How does this strike you, man?
Look, it's awesome. It's yet another great milestone for the industry. We applaud Twitter, of course. We applaud Elon for being progressive leaders and understanding what we wish our representatives in DC would finally get, and potentially other platforms that cannabis is mainstreaming every single day. So a great watershed moment for the industry for sure.
Is it exciting
so-
as a catalyst? Can I ask? As a catalyst, or is this something that you're going to dive into pretty wholeheartedly?
For MariMed, you mean?
Yeah.
So look, financial discipline is on our DNA. It's what delivers the great results that we get financially year after year, and we treat marketing spend the exact same way. So it can be viewed by many as like, let's jump in the ocean quick, and it makes sense. It's a great platform. There is no doubt about it. But we're evaluating our options and giving the same financial prudence to how we invest our marketing dollars the way we do every other aspect of our spend. So we'll see. There's great hope. And like I say, I hope it is the impetus for others to follow suit. But there is some underlying considerations here. You only advertise and geo-target in markets that are legal and that have been approved by Twitter. And my understanding, I'm certainly no expert on this yet, but my understanding is, for example, Massachusetts advertising, and that's our home state and an important one, we couldn't reach consumers on Twitter yet in mass. So we're taking all of that into consideration.
Very, very good points to make, Howard. I want to head back to what you said a second ago, right? We know right? That we're so excited about this Twitter announcement because it has been prohibited for so long. And, all of us in this industry, I hate to even say it, right? But we all had egg on our face after the end of the year when we were expecting Congress to do something. We were hoping, praying, expecting.
Well, that's where you went wrong, expecting
Jesus,
Congress
I know, man.
to do anything. I mean,
I should have learned my lesson. I didn't. But Howard, man, when you're looking at this industry and you're looking at where we all are, and it's no secret, it is tough. It is a tough capital environment anywhere these days, but especially in our industry here in cannabis. How much do you attribute to our government's inaction on legalizing or rescheduling cannabis?
Well, you've got such a confluence of circumstance, right? So you've got an industry that is still so heavily dominated by the retail investor, who is unfortunately driven by headline. So that's why you see even the slightest movement of momentum causing industry to go up, or when the rug is pulled out from under, stocks go down, and that's unfortunate. And I think until we get more institutions into the space who are longer term lookers at investment, that's going to continue to be the case, right? So momentum up and down is an unfortunate aspect. And we are just dealing with the reality of the economy too, and consumers watching every dollar they spend. So you've got a combination of this nonsense regulatory landscape combined with a downturn in the economy, and that's not going to do well for most players. Fortunately, there are companies like ours that are, financially stable, doing really well, among the most sound financial companies in the industry. And, we think we've got everything in place to not only weather that storm, but to thrive and continue growing.
I'm making a petition that Chuck Schumer is not allowed to move stocks. I think, can we get people to sign on to that? I'd sign it.
From your mouth, man. From your mouth. From your mouth. We'll see. But look, it's only a matter of time, right? But when is that time? When is that time? We shall see. But in the meanwhile, look, state after state is going the right way, save for, Oklahoma. So, we'll keep watching and we'll do what we have to do in the states we're in. I continue to say this, where it's sort of like, as a marketer, communications professional, it's like the United States of Europe. It really is, the way you have to look at marketing your products. And it's challenging, but that makes it really interesting too, for those brands that know what they're doing.
Yeah, no kidding.
You just mentioned Europe. Do you see this kind of policy taking effect in other places of the world, whether it's Europe or Latin America or any other legal jurisdictions, as it relates to Twitter?
Javier, I would say, if anybody else asked me that question, I'd say you should call Javier and ask his opinion on that topic, man. You are the international pro. Let's hope so. Let's hope so. We'd like to think that as the U.S. goes, the rest of the world will follow. I think we're finding in a lot of cases, and I don't want to go down too much of a political rabbit hole, but that's not necessarily the case anymore in a lot of ways. But again, it's a huge day and a huge moment for the industry, and one that should really be celebrated, and applaud Twitter for taking the progressive approach. And let's hope that it is yet again one more domino of many dominoes that need to fall for us to be able, at the end of the day, promote this miracle plant and what it can do for people's health and wellness lifestyle, to gain access to folks that really need it. I mean, that's what we're talking about here, is about gaining access for something that has shown its benefit.
Well, Howard, I really appreciate you coming on. It's big news, not only for the industry, it's certainly big news for us. Again, Twitter's keynoting our conference in Miami. Howard, I'm still convincing you to come down, but your new CEO, John Levine, from MariMed, will be there.
Sure.
So we'll be thrilled to hear from MariMed and everything that you guys have.
We will be well
going
represented. It is, you guys always put on the most important show of the year to talk to the investor audience and the industry. And and who knows, hopefully you'll be seeing me. But we will be represented, and for any of the folks out there that want to talk to us while we're there, by all means, give me a shout, or our head of IR, Steve West. Get in touch with us, and we'll set up a meeting for sure. But looking forward to a great 23 and beyond in partnership with you guys. Good luck, and can't wait to see y'all live once again. And I will have to say, as a comms guy who is always yelling at my team about virtual background and branding, I really screwed up here. So does this work? Does this work?
It does. It does. Yes.
If they're in the
Just
mailbox
hold
after
up.
this. Yeah.
Please hold up the edibles behind you. That's great.
It works better if you send a few here to our office in Detroit.
That's what I'm saying.
All right.
We'll pop them up here.
Noted, man. Have a great day. I really thank you guys for having us on, and look forward to seeing you all soon.
Thanks,
Thank you, Howard. Take care, man. We'll see you soon.
Be well.
The man.
All right. So again, from the comms perspective, I think it's very interesting what he started saying about the different markets, how advertising is going to potentially work. Clearly, we're in the first inning here, right? Top of the first inning for what advertising means on Twitter, how they're going to make it work.
Maybe even the ceremonial first pitch.
No kidding.
Before even the national anthem or anything.
Yeah, you're a big St. Louis Cardinals fan, aren't you?
I am. Yeah.
Yeah. So I should have known to pivot my baseball references to you.
Yeah, it's all I can only think about things in baseball terms. That's what helps me. So
That's fair. No, I like that. But Howard, thank you so much for joining us. That was really, really cool. We're going to see MariMed down again at the conference, April 11th and 12th at the Fountain Blue Miami Beach. Producer AT's got the code up on the screen. So if you're interested in coming, grab your ticket now, bzcannabis.com, and the code is Twitter. Surprise, surprise. So I believe our next guest is here. Why don't we go ahead and bring her on? She's no stranger to our audience, Emily Paxhia, managing partner at Poseidon. Poseidon, one of the best funds in the industry. AT, let's bring her on. And there she is. What's happening, my friend?
I'm, living the dream, being an investor in cannabis. How are you guys?
Oh, God bless you. Yeah, it's always an interesting day for investors in cannabis. Where are you today? Are you home?
I am in San Francisco today, yeah.
Amazing. Every time I talk to Emily, you guys, she's always like halfway around the world doing something. So
it's true.
Really cool to see you.
Our office is walking distance to the Twitter offices in San Francisco. So pretty cool.
So wait, you're connected behind the scenes to everybody, right? Emily's one of the most well-connected people in this industry, right? I also have to give her a quick shout out. Emily is our honorary chairperson of our conference down in Miami. We did this for a very important reason. Emily is probably one of the most trusted people in this industry. Everybody I ever talked to about investing in the space, about what companies need to know for whatever, whether it's raising money, whether it's operating, I'm always like, hey, you should probably talk to Emily Paxhia.
Mm-hmm. And right? Ethical behavior. That is like
ethical behavior.
Championing women and ethical behavior are two things that she is very well known.
Yeah. Well, Emily, should we back up a second and just talk about, you were one of the first women investors in the space, right? And for the longest time, you were one of the only, right? So what does it mean to you, this news today, Twitter opening their arms to cannabis? And why don't we start there?
Yeah. I think in terms of a fund management standpoint, I was one of the first. There have been many women angel investors and family office leaders allocators who've invested in the industry, and I love working with them. But and now we have more along at the table, which is great. There's plenty of room. So regarding Twitter, very exciting. I remember when Alexa reached out to me, it was a Friday afternoon and I was walking my dog actually. And I saw the inbound inquiry and I was like, this is exciting. I think one of the things that, when you're investing in cannabis, there's obviously the holy grail that someday we have nationwide legalization. But for us, it's always been about the steps along the way. So it's always been about the markets opening, jurisdictions in the markets opening, and then the private companies that would start to take interest. And, a big, huge moment for the industry was when Constellation invested into the industry and into Canopy Growth Corp, which was Tweet at one point. And these are the ways that we know that the broader sectors are starting to pay attention to us in many, many ways. And it was no mystery that Elon Musk has been a fan of cannabis, and he does not understand why the legal status is what it is. And so when he took over Twitter, one of the first tweets I posted was like, I know how you can source some ad revenue for the platform with cannabis. So that was back in April. And then fast forward to Alexa reaching out, and they've been just so great. They've been so embracing of the industry and working really hard to understand how to do it. And frankly, this is where I think that private industry will lead the change versus what we're seeing as the dysfunction in some of the government points of view around legalization or even creating banking reform. But yeah, the private companies are the ones who can create a blueprint for other private companies to start to participate and do so without having issues.
Very cool. And the platform itself, I mean, you're active on Twitter, right? I'm an old man. It's tough for me. But how important is this platform? I mean, I think we led with a statistic earlier on the show, Emily, where cannabis is searched higher than any other food and beverage term across the platform, right? Which is insane. Alexa told me that a couple nights ago. So how important is Twitter to advertise on, to use, to get the word out here?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've got a couple of key social media platforms that are the main advertising reach, right? So there's Twitter, there's Instagram, and then TikTok, which I'm not on for many, many reasons. But I think Instagram is a great place for things to be because of the lifestyle nature of the platform. People are posting in their experiences every day, but Twitter is also that. And one of the things that she shared with me when we had our first conversation is that the discussion around cannabis also eclipses the discussion around Marvel. And when you think, the way I think about this is the spending capacity that Marvel has to drive discourse on the Twitter platform versus our ground up way of being able to drive discussions around cannabis on Twitter it's truly remarkable. And what it demonstrates to me is just one further data point that people really want to have access to cannabis and they want to understand it better.
That's insane. Cannabis outpacing Marvel in discussion on Twitter. That is absolutely insane.
Yes.
How do you talk about it with your portfolio companies and with people you work with in the space? I mean, I'm sure Twitter has come up in conversation. Is it something where you wait and see how effective it is? Or is it something that you have some of your clients diving head first?
Yeah, it's interesting because advertising for cannabis in the limited silos that we've had access to because of all of the challenges has been really expensive. And so when you actually look at Twitter is actually priced very moderately and is actually an approachable entry point for companies to get into. And I love that it's a broader reach. Like we're not just playing in the silo and they can use their geo-targeting and all of their data to help to support that because they've done it in other, industries where you can't just reach all ages and everybody everywhere. So it's pretty smart that they have those resources for us. So I think it's a great opportunity for our companies. Immediately, I was talking with Kyle from Flow Hub. I talked to Sai from Headset, just kind of started with our tech companies. And then immediately also reached out to Pax because Pax has also been kind of a leader in terms of trying to create a broader kind of content marketing approach and talking about the lifestyle aspects of cannabis and how it doesn't live in a silo. Like I remember seeing PAX at comedy events back in the day before PAX was like, I would say out as a cannabis company. They were more of like a herbal vaporizer company, but yet they were at comedy events. They were at music events. And so I think that's all perfect for why Twitter works through this. I mean, for example, Outside Lands is the big music festival here in San Francisco, and they have Grasslands, which is actually a section of the festival that's all cannabis, which is really cool because they have wine lands, beer lands, cannabis lands. And one of the things that I think about is I see that Outside Lands did a whole launch of their lineup and everything, who's coming, what the festivals, what are the dates of the festival, get your tickets. And it's like, that's the megaphone for that company to start getting the word out about their festival, which is a well-established festival. And I love that it's now becoming a megaphone for our industry.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for that. And especially the inside scoop on how you as a an investor and a leader are talking to your companies, your portcos, I think is really interesting about news like this. What's the conversation like? I mean, Rob mentioned it earlier in the segment about the banking failures, right? And how that's impacting depositors, how it is impacting our industry, right? Is that part of the conversation for you guys with your companies as well?
100%. I mean, it's funny because I actually was just down in Menlo Park meeting with another a VC who's not in cannabis. And because of our issues, our companies all had banking redundancies. So the day that Thursday when Silicon Valley Bank, the Thursday of that week when it started to get really sketchy, Morgan and I and Patrick, we all started calling our companies through Friday morning. They all had redundancies. And so people kind of distributed cash in case this became systemic, which it did, and not an idiosyncratic issue. The thing that makes me concerned is I've been watching Yellen, and she was just getting interviewed, and she was talking about backstopping the deposits, which they've done, as you know, for Signature Bank and for SVB. But the concern I have is a lot of our operators do have to also work with smaller banks. Yes, they might be working with these mid-tier regional banks, and maybe some of them do have with the big four, but it's substantially they're working with smaller banks. And if there's a run on the bank, I'm worried about the protection of those deposits because of what Yellen said. So we're watching this very carefully and trying to make sure that everybody's being wise about their exposure beyond the insured levels. So it's tricky stuff, and it's definitely got an effect on the industry.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, what about, I mean, we're looking back now at some of the earnings that we've seen. Is there anything that you can point to, right? Just the general health of companies in this space, but also just any particular winners that you're looking at, people who are well positioned. You've been in the space for a hot second, my friend. So obviously it'd be great to understand what companies you're looking at when you're reporting.
Always. In August, Poseidon will have been in existence for 10 years.
Wow.
I know.
Congratulations, man.
Yeah, hanging in there. We didn't start investing until January 2014, of course, when Colorado opened, but the company was formed. But regarding, the earnings calls, the themes that I'm hearing are concerns around wholesaling, pricing in different markets, like obviously Massachusetts, Illinois is one to watch. Illinois is one to watch. The pricing pressure at the point of sale, where we're definitely feeling that consumer stretched wallet pricing, looking at the lower or value tiered pricing. So what I was hearing from what I think the companies that stand to have the longest resonance is that they will be focused on creating these different tiers of products and offering value products and understanding how to serve the customer when they are in these inflationary times. The jobs report came out, and there was some really interesting data around what the jobs are that are growing, and it's hospitality, leisure, healthcare, and retail. Now, those are fantastic jobs, but in this inflationary environment, I was just saying this, like where I see gas in Menlo Park at every station is above $5 a gallon. I mean, that your earning power really gets torched very quickly on that in terms of how it can translate to your spending power. So, we're watching this carefully. I think the operators who pay the most attention to that and who are prepared for the environment as we go forward will do the best. I also think the ones who've been very prudent about their balance sheet and not diluting shareholder value will also be the ones to stick around. So, I'm a big fan of multiple of the companies. We've always been long. We were long and early and continue to be long, and GTI is a good example of what I think is kind of a gold standard in the industry.
I'm curious about your thoughts here, and then we can get right back to Twitter. But do you think there's something to be said for more flexibly built companies in the sense of having less CapEx and capital expenditures in a time like we're seeing right now in the cannabis space?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think a lot of the big ones do have the substantial CapEx behind them, so they're a little bit rearview mirror on that. But I think I also have heard of how they're learning from that. So Yeah. Are there companies that have lighter capex? Yeah, I think you can be intelligent about how you pick up assets in this time in these markets, and the capex is already in the opportunity. It's already baked in. But I think, what I heard from, for example, at Ascend, one of the things that they talked about is, they built a pretty large scale facility in Massachusetts, and then the supply kind of eclipsed how they can work because they have the 3-store adult use caps. It creates this wholesaling challenge in the market. I think in New Jersey, they're being more judicious about how they open things in phases, and they'll talk about that, like thinking about what do you learn from other markets that you can take into the newer markets that you get into, so you can be wiser about your capex allocation, so you're not underwater on that on the go forward.
Makes perfect sense.
Mm-hmm.
So Emily, just to button this up, you are coming to Miami. You'll be speaking there with us at our conference.
Yes.
And again, guys, it's bzcannabis.com to check out our agenda, to check out what Emily will be talking about. Emily, just to end it here, you've got a couple of your colleagues coming with you to offer mentorship to some companies coming, right? We have a newfound initiative for minority-owned businesses, for women-owned businesses. Can you talk just briefly about what it means to you guys and Poseidon being involved in that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to give a huge shout out to you guys and to Benzinga for taking this initiative, because I think it's really important. We've got the larger companies in the industry, and then we have to nurture the newer companies and the independent operators that come along. So the whole Poseidon team will be there. So it's Patrick, Colin, Morgan, Andres, and I, and we'll be there. And we're going to be at lunch on day one doing kind of like roundtable speed dating with founders. So I'm hoping it'll be lively discussions. I'm hoping all the founders who are interested will come. I also believe you guys are doing some interesting discounting, but I'll let you speak to that. But founders can join together. And I think what's really exciting about those roundtable environments is founders can hear from investors, but they can also hear from other founders. And there's a lot of sharing of information. And then we're going to follow up on day 2 with 20-minute segment. I think we're going to each try to do 2 total hours across that day of 20-minute segments of one-on-ones with founders to try to do a little bit of mentoring, sharing some feedback. And, we're always looking for opportunities. If it's a fit for the fund, we'll be really transparent. If it's not, we'll give information, but we'll also give whatever advice or guidance we can to try to support founders, because we love entrepreneurship and we think it's what drives not just this industry, but this whole country forward.
No kidding. Well, Emily, I think that's a great place to end, my friend. I cannot wait to see you in Miami. Enjoy the weather there in San Francisco today, and we'll see you soon, my friend.
See you soon.
You haven't heard about the Bay Area hurricanes, huh?
The Bay Area hurricanes. No. Should I have?
I don't know. There's some crazy weather going on.
Holy God, I just sent Emily to her death. I hope not.
You know what I took away from that, Patrick?
What?
The whole reason that we're going to be having Twitter keynoting and Twitter's into the cannabis space and everything now is because of Emily. She planted that seed with that tweet suggesting that Twitter could up its revenue. I know she won't take credit for it, but I'll give her credit for it. At least planting that seed.
Well, and there's more behind the scenes, Emily being involved than anyone knows. So I would say this too. Emily, if you guys are not listening to her speak, and she speaks a lot of different places, a lot of conferences, we're very lucky to have her. She speaks in a lot of podcasts. I know she does one with Cy at Headset. She's incredibly knowledgeable on this space, and you probably heard that in her speaking just now. One thing that I do want to say, she mentioned something that I think is very important for us to highlight. We do have an initiative here for women business owners, for minority business owners, and it's very important to us, right? We don't want to be another conference that has all white men on panels across our stages. Diversity is important, right? Not only for how we represent the industry and the community on our stages, but also about creating opportunity in this industry for folks coming from diverse backgrounds. So it's very important to us. This mentorship is happening. And I can say here, we've now accepted over 100 minority and women business owners and given them complimentary passes to our Miami event, right?
That's amazing. I think especially too, I mean, this isn't an original thought by me, but especially in this space, in the cannabis space, where, for a long time, minorities have been like harmed by cannabis regulations and laws and stuff. I think it's very important to, recognize that and figure out ways to try to, I guess, amend that as cannabis becomes legal, as people start making money on this legally. A lot of people that were disproportionately affected by what I would consider very unethical, like just silly laws of cannabis throughout history, I think makes it even more important in this space in particular than maybe any other.
Well, another why, representation for both diverse and women-owned businesses and just representation in executive roles has actually gone down over the past few years. It's not going up right now. So with as much focus as you see across the industry, across social equity licenses and limited license markets, it's not necessarily helping right now. So we have to keep making sure that we are at the forefront of this.
We have to pound that drum, that's for sure. So fellas, thanks. I want to go ahead and bring on our next guest. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because I was worried I was gonna have to be a bad guy and say, all right, guys, we got to keep things on
rein
track.
us in, man.
I don't want to
Rein
have
us
to
in.
be. Yeah, but you did it for me, so let's go.
Awesome. Producer AT, you can roll it, and I'll introduce David Spreckman, EVP of Marketing at Verano. Welcome, sir. How are you?
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm doing really well. How are you all?
Oh my God, we're great, man. We're great. The news that Twitter's keynoting our conference, Twitter allowing cannabis advertising, obviously rolling it out in stages, what they're planning on doing. David, you lead marketing for one of the top multi-state operators in the U.S., right? You have a big job to get the word out about what Verano does, your brands, your stores. Maybe let's start with just your role, right, in making sure that Verano is in the news and out there, and then let's talk about how this announcement affects you guys.
Sure. Well, yeah, I think it's overall just some commentary. It's really exciting that Twitter is changing its policies and opening the doors to cannabis companies. And I sort of, as an analogy, I liken this to, from a media perspective, the early days of cannabis, and when medical dispensaries were relegated to locations in nooks and crannies and on side streets and in business parks. And what that does is it really perpetuates the stigmas and the stereotypes that you have to go to these faraway places to get it, and it doesn't lend visibility or credibility. And then with time and effort and legislation over the years, especially with the adoption of adult use policy, you start to see dispensaries become fixtures on Main Street. And that's in cities and communities and states all over the country. And that has been a massive contributor to the health and growth of this space. And I think if you take that and you compare that to what has been available to us as marketers and advertisers, we've been relegated to the nooks and crannies and the side streets. And something like Twitter is representative of Main Street within the modern media landscape. So I think this is, to your question with respect to making more people aware of us and putting Verano on the map and overall the industry on the map. This is a huge opportunity to show up on Main Street in terms of the new media world.
Can we just take a step back? Because I'm not sure we've done it yet with a guest in this segment. Can you just give us a sense as a marketer, with marketing expertise, obviously marketing for a very large company right now, where does social media play in the grand marketing scheme? How important is that to you, or will it be to you in terms of product relatability and recognition?
Sure. So it's a great question, and it's an interesting one because social media platforms have really been optimized as ad platforms. Not to suggest that there's no value there from an organic standpoint, because there certainly is, and you see a lot of brands in a lot of categories who leverage social media as a storytelling platform and as a way to engage with consumers, but it's optimized for a mixture of spend and organic. So the way that we viewed it historically has been, this is an amazing way to tap into the community. Cannabis consumers are very passionate people. They care a lot about the products they consume, about where they come from, how they're made. And they like to connect with one another and talk about the experiences. So it's been a great tool for us to stay connected with our community, to be sure that what we're doing from a product perspective and a retail perspective is delivering value in a way that's meaningful. But this opens up a whole new world. Once you can combine the paid aspect with a strong organic aspect, now you're able to go out and reach new consumers. And, like our industry, like any other, the health of the industry is dependent on growth, and growth is oftentimes dependent on bringing new people into the fold. And so now with the ability to run advertising, I think we're going to see some serious evolution here through Twitter. And I mean, I can only hope that others will follow suit here.
So I have to pause for a second just to say I love the Reefer Madness poster on your wall behind you. Your pal Aaron Miles, the CIO of Verano, just sent me a picture of what I look like on screen, and he said "Go blue," given the Michigan helmet behind me. But I didn't realize I looked like flippin' Gollum up here. I really appreciate.
I think you look good, man.
Thanks, pal. I appreciate
As your
that.
brother, you will never forget this.
Yeah, no, thanks. Appreciate that. So David, here's the thing. Companies in your space have aligned themselves with celebrities, with influencers, with anybody and everybody that you can align yourselves with to help get the word out about your brands, right? And just foot traffic in your stores, right? Does this news change any of that? Do you go harder in some of those areas? Give us a sense of how this shifts the model a little bit.
I don't know that it immediately shifts the model. It's a similar strategy with different mediums, right? We're trying to tap into new, large, diverse audiences. And if that means you can work with a celebrity like a Mike Tyson, who, brings with him something like 20 million Twitter followers, that's something that's obviously very compelling to us. And to the extent that there is an authentic cannabis story there, which there very much is, it certainly makes a lot of sense to us as a marketing platform. This is another version of that. Obviously there isn't a single personality tied to it, but this is a vast, vast universe of highly engaged consumers across a lot of categories who, and I think it's important to note, this is a platform that's relied upon by so many as an ongoing and endless exchange of information and ideas and things. So I can't imagine a better place to interject ourselves as a brand to try to meet and connect with new consumers. So I don't know that this will change our approach on the brand partnership side up front, but yeah, I think among many other variables, this is going to influence the future for sure.
Are you going to take different strategies for new consumers versus what you were talking about before, those engaged, passionate cannabis consumers? I think I heard a stat, cannot hold me on this because I have not verified myself. Maybe but like the top 20% of cannabis consumers are the ones who buy 80-90% of the product that we see sales wise. So, how do you market to these different, because it seems like you could go pretty heavy towards the cannabis consumer and then pretty, somewhat introductory health and wellness, maybe some other strategies. But I'm curious, is Twitter a vehicle for both?
For sure it is. And yeah, it's a fascinating principle. I'm pretty sure it's the Pareto principle, where you get 80% of productivity from about 20% of any representative body. And I think it's true in professional sports. There's probably about 20% of the players in the NBA who account for 80% of all point and rebound productivity. This principle applies all over the place. It's fascinating. I was actually just talking about that with somebody, but before I digress, I think the Twitter universe is home to just about anyone and everyone. From a marketing strategy perspective, yeah, I think you do take a different approach with your most indoctrinated, heaviest, and most engaged users versus somebody who you might be introducing to cannabis or introducing to a brand for the first time. So, on a platform like Twitter, you're able to run campaigns with a prospecting approach, and you're also able to run campaigns through something like retargeting. And you might vary your messaging, you might vary the brand preference on things like that, depending on who it is that you're targeting. And we certainly take that approach with our brand portfolio and our product portfolio as well. Offline and away from Twitter, you've got products and brands that are much more so geared toward the heavy cannabis consumer who really knows their stuff and who may be more focused on, for example, terpenes than straight up THC potency as a qualifier for a premium product, versus, you know, somebody who's more in the canna curious bucket, who maybe has never tried cannabis or has tried it once or twice, but they're not quite sure about it. And these are very different people. So you've got to be able to reach and communicate with both effectively. But obviously you're going to give a slight preference toward the 20% that are accounting for 80% of the business if you had to choose.
So, I mean, one question that I would have for you, David, when I think of advertising, right, and I think of products like cannabis edibles, right, or vapes or something like that, I see in my mind pictures of those products. I see pictures of certain people using those products, right? And I know your job is, all right, I got to identify the buyer personas. I got to figure out who, you know, how I target certain people based on what these products are and how to get them in front of them. What about Twitter being a community-driven platform that is mostly conversational too? And what does that mean to you as the marketer, coming in and telling the story, not only behind your products and the story behind Verano, but then also there's a larger conversation. There's still a healthy amount of people, especially in the US, who don't believe that cannabis should be legal, right? And don't believe that cannabis should be available as a recreational product. How does that factor into how you would approach that platform?
Yeah, well, I think it's if anything, it's a cautionary tale, right? You can't expect necessarily to convert somebody who's on the fence in 100 characters. So what you want to do is certainly open doors and create opportunities and start dialogues, but not set expectations such that within the Twitter platform you're going to start converting the non-converted. So to me, it's really about expectations. It's about setting objectives and measuring KPIs that make sense. And on a platform like Twitter, you're really looking to open the door. That's probably the most important aspect.
I have a follow-up there.
Sure.
So when it comes to that, and trying to get people somewhat introduced to this industry, or at least in an open-minded sense and level, education seems to be the word that this industry uses the most. We need education about the benefits of the education of cannabis being able to help with focus, cannabis being able to help with physical activity, cannabis being able to help you relax and go to sleep, all these different uses from these different cannabinoids. And then you add in all the hemp derived ones. That's a different conversation. But when it comes to education, obviously it has to be short form somewhat, but is that a part of marketing for you, or is it one and the same? It seems to me education in this space, it's just been hard to reach the masses in cannabis. So is this going to be a tool for companies like Verano and other leaders to educate the general populace on what cannabis actually does for you?
Without a doubt. Education will have to be central to messaging strategy. I mean, if not just for the fact that that's at least the starting point for Twitter. There's not anything transactional in nature in terms of what's been made available. So education is where we'll begin. But education, to your point, is really central to just about all the marketing that we do. And as an example, what you might do with a Twitter ad is in very short form, again, open a door to a concept, whether that's any of the things you just mentioned, certain cannabinoids and their impact on things like focus versus sleep versus pain management. And you might open the door with a tidbit, and then you're driving traffic to a blog post, which is a much longer form version of that story and can really get into the nitty gritty of how and why and what that story is and why it matters to you as a consumer. And so one of the brands that we will be running a test campaign for in Illinois starting next week is Bits. Bits is a low-dose edible brand that we launched across 6 or 7 states early November.
Highly recommend, by the way, David.
We will take
Bits is a great product.
We will take your testimony.
Yep, look at Elliot holding it up too. Yep. Great
amazing. Product. Encore. I love it. And so Bits is Bits is sort of tailor-made for this environment. Bits is there's 5 SKUs in the portfolio. It's a low-dose edible. It's got a variety of cannabinoid ratios. Each product has a couple of adaptogens added to it. So there's a product for focus. There's a product for sleep. There's a product for intimacy. There's a product for energy. And the low-dose platform has made this really accessible to a lot of consumers. I think there's still a fair amount of people who look at a cannabis edible and are worried about negative potential. And so when you drop that dosage down, you seem to eliminate barriers. And what's been very interesting from my perspective is that it actually doesn't seem to be a turnoff for heavier users either. A lot of people who consume quite a bit of cannabis look at a 5 milligram edible and just think that's amazing. I can, these are sessionable. I can eat a few of them, or I can have 1 or 2 during the day, and it's a great product. So it has been, that's been a pleasant surprise. But with a product like that, where you've got a 5 SKU portfolio that's designed to be more accessible to the canna curious and to those that are a little bit earlier on in their cannabis exploration journey, there's an opportunity to drop some interesting tidbits on a paid platform like Twitter, putting some money behind it, and then drive those consumers into a longer form story on a blog where they might be able to, from there, move directly into a digital merchandise experience, a menu, start to look at the products, pricing, where they might be able to find it. And you can inform a journey quite well from the upper funnel down to the mid and lower funnel, all through the beginning of a Twitter ad. So it's exciting.
I would just like to publicly say, and then I think Aaron or Patrick may have a question, but I feel like the cannabis industry doesn't cater enough to fat guys. Can I just, brother. I want to explain. Preach. I want to explain. I don't want to eat just one gummy, right? Or 2 gummies. Give me a whole bag that is 1 serving of a dose, and I will probably down that. That's all I'm going to say. It's a public ask. Like 1 serving of a whole bag. I don't know. I don't know how that's possible, or if it's margin
David,
for you.
If you could give it to him in a can of Pringles or a bag of jelly beans, yeah. I'm sure he would be happy with that.
I don't want to make any promises, but I will tell you that is a concept that we have been weighing, because you're not the first person I've heard say that, Elliot.
The fat guys are waiting, man. We are in the wings.
Well, I'm here for this conversation.
I honestly is a good idea, Elliot. I like that as well. But Dave, I'm gonna hop in here. I'm Aaron. I don't know if we've ever had a chance to speak. I'm familiar with Verano products. I don't want to implicate myself, and I don't know the legality of this, but I'm from St. Louis, Missouri, which borders Illinois. So I'll just say I had some buddies that maybe used to go drive across the river to Illinois and pick up some Verano products back in the day. Again, not me, but maybe I had some buddies that did that. I don't know. But David, I'm curious, because we've been talking about social media advertising. On the private side, you have some of these restrictions, like Instagram saying, okay, we're not going to allow cannabis advertising, or some of the other social platforms. But what about from the more government regulation standpoint? Is there anything that the government, or the government's inaction, I should say, has made a marketing strategy harder to execute?
Yeah, I mean, advertising and marketing regulations are pretty tight. So again, historically, we've had very few channels available to us. In the last couple of years, you've seen some of that open up with things like digital programmatic. On the more traditional side, out of home and radio. There's the regulatory policy makes it very difficult, because, and it varies state by state, but essentially you'll need to verify that a vast majority of the population being served an ad are of a certain legal age, and that you're ultimately not promoting among a group of people who would be inappropriate to receive cannabis advertising. So the regulatory framework, yes, has definitely made this very challenging. Now, the benefit of the new media landscape is that it's all digital, it's incredibly targeted, it's incredibly efficient. You can all well guarantee, if we decide we want to target people that are from the ages of 35 to 44 living in the St. Louis area and, are interested in mountain biking, you can pretty well hit that group. So I think where the dissonance takes place is that the regulatory framework is strict and difficult to navigate, and yet the media landscape is actually very capable of doing just that. So again, this Twitter moment is seems to me like the significant building block, and hopefully other platforms and other advertisers and publishers might follow suit. But we have this capability at our fingertips today, and it's something that as cannabis marketers, we've just not been able to tap into.
Yeah, and I mean, we hope so too, for sure, that can be kind of the first domino falling and allowing other, cannabis advertisements on other platforms as well. But that's what I was curious about, because it's like, so, you're not only dealing with it from just the private side, from the companies themselves saying, oh, I don't know if we want this, but also the government, and it puts, some of these companies, like, and you don't need me to tell you, I mean, you're the vice president of marketing at Verano, it's difficult when you're dealing with all these restrictions in an already kind of competitive field.
Without a doubt.
Well, so what else do you think besides like those other social media platforms saying, okay, yeah, come on and advertise with us? What else would you like to see done?
From an advertising perspective?
Yeah, something that would make your job as like the head of marketing a little bit easier. I mean, you mentioned like being able to, target certain groups like mountain bikers in St. Louis, but anything particularly that makes it, I guess, would be allow you to more effectively execute like a marketing strategy from a high level.
Sure. Well, I think, a few more of the similar dominoes to Twitter would be massively helpful. There's a couple other primary players in the digital space that operate the largest and most efficient advertising platforms ever conceived. And there's a good chunk of those. So to the extent to which all of them became available, I think it would be a pretty big unlock for us. And then, of course, and this might be a whole separate conversation that we don't get into at the moment, but some sort of federal framework around which we could operate into the future, just given that on a state-by-state basis, it naturally detracts from efficiency when you've got to create all these things on a very hyper-local level versus thinking about things more holistically, certainly with respect to brand building. So some sort of federal framework would go a very long way.
Yeah, and I think, I'm hopeful, and I said it earlier, but especially with like, kind of my generation, younger people, I think we all see cannabis differently than, or at least most of us see cannabis differently than maybe some of the older generations. But to me, it's always like shocking that I can be driving down a road and see billboards for, beer or whatever. And then for some reason they draw the line at advertising for cannabis. It baffles me.
There's more now, but I mean, more municipalities have to jump in and say, hey, we're going to allow this, right? So David, you've got your work cut out for you, man. It's a really cool thing, the advent of Twitter allowing cannabis companies to advertise. I think we have time for one more question. I saw Javi pop on. Javi, welcome back, brother. Do you have one question for David here?
Yeah. Hi, David. So I was thinking from what Aaron was mentioning, right? There's this certain conception that weed, cannabis, pot, the devil's lettuce sells itself. Is it true? And in your experience, and what does Twitter change things at all?
I don't think anything sells itself entirely. There has to be an introduction, there has to be an opportunity, there has to be an experience. Certainly, I think in some cases sales can be sustained based on a single interaction, but the space isn't going to grow if you can't reach new consumers. You're not going to be able to reach new consumers if you don't have the channels and tools available to you in order to do so. I don't want to completely dismiss that notion, because I think cannabis is wonderful and amazing, and it does so many great things for people of every variety for so many reasons. It's a wonder plant, but it does need a little bit of a nudge here and there. Everything does.
Love that. David, I really appreciate your time, man. I know we're going to see some of your colleagues down at our event in Miami, Aaron Miles and Darren Weiss. Are you coming down too? Did they let the marketing guy come?
I think they may give me a seat. I'm still TBD, but there's a good chance I will show up there. And
awesome.
If so,
we'll have to rope you in, man.
And I really appreciate y'all having me on today. This was great.
It's our pleasure, man. David Spreckman, EVP of Marketing at Verano. Good luck, my friend. We'll see you down in Miami.
Sounds good. Take care.
All right. So there we heard it. I mean, we got to talk to the head of marketing for one of the major multi-state operating cannabis companies here in the U.S. Javi, what do you take from that, man?
I mean, honestly, I'm just impressed at the lineup so far. You can see also the new setting I'm in. I'm in the offices of our very good friends at Volá in Chile. The CEO will be joining us shortly as well. This is the most watched platform for video on cannabis in all the Spanish-speaking world. So I'm sure he'll have great insights. But so far, what I feel is this is having a pretty big impact on brands, right? Especially on brands is what I feel, right? B2C promotion and generally just reaching consumers through new channels is a great opportunity for cannabis companies. What do you feel?
No, I'm right there with you, man. And I'm also just impressed with, we literally just said Javi's our international man of mystery. He's always in a different place. And lo and behold, within a broadcast, he moves from one place to another. I'm just very, very impressed with your ability.
He is the Argentinian action figure.
We should get a Javier action figure made. That would be a really
I'll get one made.
We could sell it. We give them away with the free samples. Pickle Jim, just full of ideas. Free samples to our guests.
I really enjoyed that, Pickle Jim, by the way. You be careful, Pickle Jim. We're going to bring you on. Elliot, let's introduce our next guest and keep it rolling here.
Very excited. A company I've worked with for years. Actually, when I first was hired at Benzinga, I think Trulieve was the first company that I had the pleasure of working with. I had zero idea how cool they were because I was totally clueless, but I learned. This is OTC listed TCNNF. We have their Chief Marketing Officer, Gina Collins, joining us today to talk about Twitter. Hi, Gina. Welcome in. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Good to see you all.
Oh my God.
Thrilled.
Welcome, Gina. This is
Great to see
crazy times we live in. Thank you for making the time to be with us. But how does this strike you? Obviously, you've been well aware that Twitter was going to allow cannabis advertising. You guys have participated in some of the rollout here. Now they're going to come and keynote our Miami conference and tell the world. We'll be their first public venue where they'll talk about how this is going to work and what the opportunity is for cannabis companies. How does this all strike you?
Well, it's super exciting, right? I first venue for you, and it correlates greatly to this conversation because Trulieve was actually the first MSO to go live on the platform once they opened it up. So I know that team well. They're very impressive. And I think that why it's so exciting is at some level, it's an ad platform that everybody else is already using. I think outside of our industry, it's really hard to understand the limitations on marketing and advertising and how creative you really have to be as far as getting messages out to the customers. So I just think it shows a ton of, movement for Twitter itself. Good decision. Obviously, I might be a little bit biased, but it also pushes the industry forward in a huge way. So selfishly, was thrilled to be the first one, thrilled to see what it's going to do for Trulieve itself, but then broader for the industry as a whole. I just think it's momentum forward to start getting to more normalization of industry.
How can I just follow up there? I think you're the first company that's maybe not the first, but in terms of on this show being on Twitter. But how was the rollout? Like, how was the actual process of getting your ads up on Twitter? Was it difficult? Was it super strict? I'm just really curious, from the operator and advertiser perspective.
I think that at the end of the day, they have great talent. And for clarification, we actually were the first one to go out. So we had a little bit of a heads up. And when I say a little bit, super short timeline. And for me, coming from of most recent a performance marketing background, it was super exciting, right? So we jumped and kind of motivated our internal team and started discussing what the best approach would be. And Twitter was right there with us the whole time. They were very honest that this was new for them. Obviously our industry is highly regulated, so they were trying to balance what they knew, what they didn't know being new, but not being as restrictive, to the point where it would provide no value for cannabis companies to join. So can't thank them enough. Truly all pros. There were very few bumps in the road, and we went up within 48 hours, quite frankly.
Wow.
Once we knew it was actually going to happen.
What were you advertising? I'm curious. Like, what did you get to advertise? What was the first cannabis ad on Twitter? That is historical.
Right. And back to where we started the conversation, when you don't have access to as many channels in the traditional funnel, if you will, I think given the size of its active users, Trulieve really wanted to explore what broad awareness and the conversation about cannabis would look like. It is one of the top, if not the top, trending conversations on Twitter as a regular basis. So we knew the audience was prepped. We knew the audience would be interested in what we had to say. So it was just really telling them who we are and why we think we can help them on their health and wellness journey through the usage of cannabis.
A very trivial question here, but did you print out the very first ad? Is it framed somewhere? I feel like it belongs in a museum.
That's very sweet. It's all over the internal marketing organization's laptops. There are certainly probably some printouts and having additional internal fun with the ads that we actually used. We use static imagery and we used video content. So I'm sure you can manifest where all of that comes to life internally and people having fun with it. Super, super proud. I mean, to turn the content with the rules and regulations of the platform evolving as we're pushing it out, and to get to video in that short amount of time, that I think completely resonates for our brand, that everybody just did a fantastic job. The stars could have not have aligned better for Trulieve, and I think quite candidly Twitter too.
That's amazing. Gina, I want to pivot for just 1 second, right? One of the big things that we wanted to do this year at our Benzinga conference is focus a lot of our energy and content around the fact that up until recently, right, there's been a large push to talk about CPG, but in sort of an external sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
For the longest time, we've talked about cannabis as its own little bubble, right? And we want to bridge that gap. We want to help bridge that gap and put cannabis on Main Street, right? So we have topics, we have content that suggests a broader CPG connection to this space. I mean, my God, you worked at Coca-Cola. You were the chief marketing officer for Outback and Build-A-Bear, and I'm looking at your resume and it just screams
insane.
It's insane, right? So Gina, when you look at this industry, where are we going in cannabis? What is this going to look like? I mean, I'm not asking you to prognosticate, but obviously we know that big alcohol's been looking at the space, big tobacco. We know that cannabis items are now being sold in certain retail stores like Urban Outfitters and things like that. What's the connection look like to you? Maybe let's start there.
Yeah, I think that's the big magic question. I wish I could tell you, the answer. That's what everybody wants to know. To your point, I do believe strongly that while cannabis has been insulated as its own little bubble, if you really look at some of the growth attributes and the leveling off of certain indicators in the industry, it is leaning towards a more traditional CPG / retail-based model, depending on what side of the business that you're in. And so as someone that has an enormous passion for brands, and as you referenced, I grew up and spent a majority of my career at the Coca-Cola company, I think I really have a deep underlying knowledge of the power of what building those brands in the right way can do for the long term. So I see it going CPG. I see businesses getting more in line with what you might expect from building brands in the way that CPG would. And at the end of the day, it's all about the customer. And I think for me, I have seen a shift. So I really started engaging in the cannabis industry in 2019. And I have really seen a shift over the last year of the focus on brands and what these models might ultimately look like pushing towards CPG. Now, there's some other aspects in there, but I can tell you, as I mentioned, that's where I am focused at the moment, as is the marketing team at Trulieve. Really making sure that from a branding perspective, it's the start of everything, that everyone knows who and what we stand for, and we live to that customer promise.
I'm sure you're aware of the stat, but we talked about it a couple times today in the show, where cannabis is the most searched term out of any food and beverage term in the category on Twitter specifically. But you say you take maybe a health and wellness approach with your first ad. Are they linked? Are they one and the same? I'm curious. Does cannabis steer into that food and beverage side? It's a broad question, but how do health and wellness and the food and beverage aspect of this correlate?
It's a great question. I think that, and just for clarification, we went out with several ad strategies to test and learn, right? Because Twitter can tell us what they know works outside of the industry. Because it was all new, we took the best of the suggestions and the data that we had, and we put multiple approaches in market. The health and wellness is what appears to resonate in the broader conversation. And so to link that back to your question, it was a great setup for me because, as we mentioned, I come from Coca-Cola. And so beverage is a huge passion of mine. And I've done the alcohol side as well. And when you look at the stats as far as active cannabis markets, specifically in the United States, not surprising given the outside of cannabis growth of functional beverage. Cannabis beverage is still overall a very low percentage of the total market, but it is exponentially growing year over year over year. And so I think in those channels, we'll start to, as the consumer and the customer get more educated about cannabis and what it can offer them, depending on what their individual journey is, I think we'll just see that to continuously and exponentially grow. Edibles is a very similar, it links directly to the beverage side of it, right? And whether that is baked goods, bakery items, or gels themselves that are super popular in most markets where they're legal, we see the same growth patterns there. So it's a direct link to food and beverage. And I think that that will just continue to strengthen over time, for sure.
Very cool. Well, Gina, I so appreciate you spending time with us today. I know we're going to see you live down in Miami at our conference on April 11th and 12th. We really look forward to it. And my God, again, the resume, you guys, the resume for Gina Collins, I just cannot speak highly enough about you and how excited I am for our audience to hear from you in Miami.
So very kind. Really appreciate it. I know we've met electronically, but this is the first time we're getting to spend time together. So Miami's just a few weeks away, and I'll look forward to that as well.
Thank you, Gina.
Awesome. Have a great day.
You too.
Take care. Wow. Wow. Former Coca-Cola, Build-A-Bear, Outback Steakhouse exec, leading what is arguably the largest cannabis company in the U.S., right? I mean, it depends upon which article we're reading these days, but my God, what a background, right? And how cool it is to hear from her on what this does for their business.
I honestly kind of wanted to ask her why Outback serves Pepsi. I just had a steak in the Outback Grill at the airport, and it was like, can I get a Coke? And go like, we got Pepsi.
You are just pure chaos. That's all you are. You are a tornado.
Chaos.
Oh my God, I love it. We're
Well,
not done
like,
yet.
It might be an airport thing. I think sometimes like airports might have deals with either Coke or Pepsi, and then all the restaurants. Because I don't know. I could be way off there, but I think that might be because if Outback is under Coke's thing, is that what you're saying, Javi, or no?
I mean, I know they serve
She just worked at
Pepsi.
both.
She
Okay.
worked at both.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's an interesting question, though. We'll have to ask her that on the panel in Miami. All right, my friends. Well, let's move right along. I think our next guest is with us. Awesome. Thank you, producer AT. So let's move along. We have one of our good friends in the industry joining us next, Al Harrington, former NBA star and now CEO and founder of Viola Brands. Let's bring him on. There he is.
What's up,
What's
fellas?
up, man?
How y'all doing?
Where are you that looks so beautiful today? What is happening?
Yeah,
Man,
wow.
I am in New York City.
Wow.
That's what's
look
up.
A rooftop in New York.
that.
I hope I'm cool enough to be on a rooftop in New York City at some point.
You will, man, but it'll probably be the Empire State Visitors Center.
Oh, I heard about that one.
Oh, shots fired.
Yeah, Al, look at you, man. This is so cool. You're wearing the Viola hat. What's new with you,
Viola
man?
came.
What's going on with Viola, dude?
Man, I'm actually in New York right now because we're finally launching in my home state of New Jersey. We're doing it in a collaboration with Rise Dispensaries. We got two launch events. One is on Friday at their Patterson location, and the big party is Saturday at the Bloomfield location. So just here, doing some media, just rubbing some elbows, making sure that we have a great event this weekend.
That is amazing, man. So the Rise Dispensaries, that's a part of the GTI conglomerate, right?
Yeah.
Wow, man. So your home state in New Jersey, you're coming home, you're launching the brand there. How does it feel to be coming home and coming home big?
Man, it feels so good, man. It's funny. I'm shooting content, like getting ready for our recap video and stuff. And yesterday I went back to my hometown of Orange, New Jersey, and just walked around. I went to where I grew up, the apartment, by the hospital where I was born, my elementary school, middle school. I actually saw, man, I couldn't believe it. I went to the elementary school, and the secretary that was there when I was there is still there. I couldn't believe it. You know what I'm saying? She's like 70, almost like 78 years old. So it was a great experience. And just like I said, getting ready for this has been amazing. We have some really good flour that I'm excited for people to try. And this is a big moment for me, man. I'm super excited.
That's amazing, man. Well,
Very
listen,
exciting news also, yeah. In the social media
Javi.
world, I think Patrick was going to say the same thing, right? You're the CEO of the first African American owned cannabis multinational, right? That is a first. Now, right. Twitter also has a first, which is the first big social media platform to allow cannabis advertising. And we also have a first at Benzinga, the Cannabis Capital Conference, April 11th and 12th. You'll be seeing Twitter speak for the very first time in an official public forum about the herb. What does that mean for you? What does it mean for Viola? What does it mean for the industry? And what does it mean for the community?
Bro, we breaking down barriers, man. You know what I'm saying? This is that's what prohibition is about, right? Over time, things just continue to change. And, in this world we live in, things change really fast. And, Twitter being the first is a huge opportunity for all of us as cannabis brands. We've always been thinking that cannabis just hasn't found the internet yet. And, now with this, happening, that's changing, right? Obviously there's a lot of restrictions around, Instagram or just Facebook in general that just makes it extremely tough. And it's really unfortunate, for a lot of our brands because, we try to, abide by the rules, but sometimes even when you're abiding by the rules, they snatch your page away from you and stuff like that. And it makes it very inconsistent, as you're trying to build these brands. So now with Twitter doing this, I think that they're going to make all the other platforms change what they do. You know what I'm saying? I think it's just almost the same thing of when I first met with David Stern and talked to him about professional athletes using cannabis to how that became a viral conversation. And then I think MLB was first, and then now we see now every sport, pretty much allows cannabis use, right? So I think it'd probably be the same thing in the media world. And, big shout out to Twitter for being the first. And, Viola can't wait to start getting some of our cool ads up there.
Amen.
Well,
now, Go ahead, Patrick.
When I just want to know, when are you gonna sit down with Elon Musk and introduce him to some Viola flower? Right?
Yeah, hopefully sooner than later, man. And hopefully I get an investment out of him too.
Yeah, come on, Elon.
Oh,
Come
this
on.
is the call. This is the
Yeah,
call.
get behind us,
How many
baby.
degrees of separation do you have between? How many degrees of separation are between Al
Ooh.
Harrington and Mr. Elon Musk?
What a question.
No, I don't
Can't be
think
that
it's
many.
any. I don't think it's any. I mean, I know a couple people that I've seen him with before, like Kevin Durant, guys like that. But one day I'll get in front of him.
Now, you're talking
you
about
go.
content to start, man. So a little bit about what content you're creating. Are you already using the social platforms, obviously, to spread the good Viola word? Is that going to be somewhat intermingling with your ads as you all, launch on Twitter one day? I'm just curious, what type of content are you focused on right now?
Yeah, I mean, so a lot of the stuff we do is obviously around promoting the brand. We also launched in the middle of 2022 our Viola Vibe system, which was pretty much a way for us to categorize the flower around effect-based healing. So, we have our Get Up and Go, which is sativa. We have our Good Times, which is our sativa hybrid, Kickback, which is our indica hybrid, and Lights Out for our indica, right? So we ran like a Viola Vibes commercial where we had like old folks sitting on the couch and, a kid breaking the window and then them, hitting the good times and everything was okay. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yes,
just
I love
cool,
that.
cool stuff like that, man. We try to do and just try to be innovative. We've actually told the Viola story through a cartoon, with my voice and then my voice acting like my grandmother, which we thought was pretty cool and funny. So, just
I wanna
different
see
things
that.
like that, because we look at it like a lot of this stuff is like campaigning a little bit, right? With the content that we create. And then we also have like a lot of cool stuff that, that we've been thinking about doing. And now, like I said, that this door has now opened that we can press play on.
Very cool, man. Well, Al, we won't keep you, man. I know you've got a busy, busy weekend ahead of you.
Yes, sir.
I'm thrilled for you that you get to go home. Listen, the background for you right now is exactly what I see for you. Nothing but blue skies, brother. So it's good to
doubt.
see you. Hope you're
Thank
well.
you, guys. All right.
Thank you, Al.
Benzinga the
All right.
best, baby.
Yeah, thank you, Al. Later on.
Heard it from Al, not me.
I love
I
that guy.
I have never seen someone retire and then be so busy, right? It's like
It's so true. He was supposed to. Yeah. I mean, the guy launching Viola. The story, if you don't know it, please go look up Viola Brands. It's such a cool story. He and his grandmother, and then what he's been able to build, right? As an African American man, as a business owner, is nothing short of incredible, right? So we applaud him. We're thrilled to always have him on with us. And I know our next guest is here, so I'll shut up and let's keep this rolling.
Yeah,
Elliot,
let's
Javi, do
do
one
it.
of you want to introduce him?
Javi, give it a go, man. You know him.
Sure, man. Our next guest is the one and only Montel Williams, a person who needs no introduction. Let's get him on.
Hello, sir.
Montel,
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
It is such a
You
pleasure to have you with us, man.
Well, thank you. It's so good to be here with you, too. I've been in computer craze here for the last 10 minutes trying to get ready for you guys. I set up a background. It seems to be freezing quite a bit, so I apologize for that, but good to be with you.
Well,
you
it's
look
good to
good,
be
man.
with
You look
too.
good. I remember first hearing you speak and tell your story with cannabis in 2016, and I was shaken to my core, right? I remember you saying, of course I'm mad, right? Times have changed, though, a lot. And probably Twitter going into cannabis this hard is a clear indicator of the changing times. Do you feel the same way, right? Or not?
Let's back up for a second. I've been, you heard from me the first time 2016, but I've literally been in this since 2002, really 2001. Wow. So I'm going on my 21st year here. And, have we gone far enough? Have we gone over 20 years? It's taken us to now to let Twitter allow us to speak about cannabis. And let's make sure we understand is that they're going to constrain your ability to talk about individual brands I think this is a great opportunity. The fact that Twitter will now stop stomping on people's heads when they talk about cannabis, but I don't think we've gone far enough. And, come on, 22 years now, we're finally allowed to talk about something that 92% of the country agrees is efficacious medication for most. So, I'm happy. I'm happy because I think we now finally have something that might reverberate throughout this industry to make us all remember that a rising tide lifts all boats. Why are we so stagnant right now? I think this industry has stagnated itself because we've spent so much time concentrating on B2B and not concentrating on B2C. And what I mean by B2C is I'm talking about the business to the consumer. We do a great job of sharing information amongst each other and trying to figure out how we can purchase somebody's equipment or share information about how to extract and those kinds of things. But how much time have we really focused in on educating the masses? Twitter may now give us that opportunity to do that, and not as veiled as it's been. We won't probably be able to initially jump out there and start talking about brands. I mean, I have my own brand that's out there right now in Massachusetts called Inspire. I probably won't be able to do that initially, but what I can do is sponsor an educational segment on Twitter by Inspire. You understand what I'm saying?
Yep.
And
Love
that's
that.
I think that's what we as an industry ought to jump on right now. I mean, the entire industry. I'm so happy that I'm getting an opportunity to speak with you guys and speak at the Benzinga live on I think it's
April 11th.
Yeah, so I think I'll be speaking April 11th in the afternoon for a few minutes. And I think this may, I had already wanted to speak before this audience about the fact that, while you sit in this room and ponder getting involved in the industry, a lot of people have, over the last 15 years and then in the last 5 years, jumped into the industry thinking more about what it can do for them. It's now time for us as an industry to start thinking about what we as an industry can do for others and the rest of the industry.
Really important.
I think every brand out there, every single brand, every single manufacturer, every single grower out there should now take this as a wake-up call and say, okay, Twitter's not going to allow me to talk about my particular phenotype or my particular formulation, but it's going to let me talk to the consumer about some of the 3,500 peer-reviewed published documents in the last year and a half, 3,500 of them in 2021, 3,500 of them in 2022. We have 35,000 peer-reviewed published documents on cannabis right now available to the public, but the public doesn't know where to go to get it. And it's incumbent upon us to start sharing that information with the public, so make them understand that, yes, this is a viable medication that should be included in your quiver. And I can't even go any further without saying we all should. I'm glad that you guys are holding the forum that you're holding, but let's spend a little time over the next couple of days and leading up to Benzinga, letting people recognize that they should express some reverence to someone who just passed in the last couple of weeks, and that's Dr. Raphael Mechoulam.
Yeah.
The national news didn't cover that at all. Whereas this is a person who, actually was afforded the use of American tax dollars in his studies in Israel. This is a guy who's received NIDA's biggest award, and done research that has been validated and has been published for over 30 years in cannabis. Mm-hmm. And we don't show him the reverence that we should, but I'm going to shout out to Dr. Mechoulam right now and say, God bless you for passing, my friend. And, I fortunately had an opportunity to sit down with him in his laboratory in Israel back in 2010.
Wow.
Long before the cannabis discussion became vogue with the green rush. And I've been literally trying my best to advocate for patients having access to efficacious medication, but what they need is access to efficacious information. And that's what we all as brands should look at this as an opportunity for.
Well,
Amen.
Montel, if I could jump in here, first of all, thanks for being an OG in this space, right? 21 years, right? You may be the person that I now know who's been in the industry the longest, right? Everybody else is 10, 13, 15.
Well, I got to give Woody Harrelson some props because Woody did come out before me. And, you know, there were discussions about cannabis, but none, I think, you know, fortunately and unfortunately for me, you know, the way circumstances happened, you know, I got called out, got popped at an airport in 2001 and literally forced to discuss my cannabis use publicly. But I didn't do so with any hesitation because I recognized that I was doing the same thing that the federal government was doing anyway. You know, our government, who's honed a patent on CBD since 2002, has been trying its best to figure out how they could corner this market without having any of us involved. So I started really coming forward and speaking before legislative bodies all over the country from 2001, 2002, 23, 2004, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Back in the day when no one would stand beside me because they were afraid of getting, you know, some hemp dust on them. But but the truth of the matter is that I think it was the efforts that I was doing, and you know, back then Branson, and back then Peter Soros was doing. All of those people came together with MPP and with DPA and those organizations that literally went out here and got in the trenches with state legislatures that literally has created what we see today.
Well, and Montel, I think, you know, obviously what you just said there and what you referenced before about, you know, stepping on the heads of people wanting to talk about the industry, wanting to learn about the industry, whether it's these platforms before Twitter decided to allow advertising, or even our elected officials, right? Who I think someone earlier in this segment said that this nonsense regulatory landscape and the inaction from our elected officials, many of them have led us to where we are now, which is it's a tough place. Our industry's in a tough place right now, right? And while there is opportunity, right, there's a lot of dysfunction. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I really think that, and this is not an aspersion. I am not, please believe me, I'm not pointing a finger or calling out our industry in a negative way, but I'm trying to say that it's time that we've got to figure out the fact that it's been 20 years, folks, and we still haven't cracked this nut. That's not because of the legislators. That's because of us. You know, we spent more time, again, in the B2B world, business to business world. You know, I for a while was traveling around to a lot of the conventions. And honestly, I was just at one NECAN a week ago. NECAN, wonderful forum, allowing people, that's a North New England Cannabis Conference, allowed a lot of individual businesses to present what they have to the public, and the public was there in full force. But we didn't hold any sessions just educating the looky-loo, the cannabis curious. And there are so many of them that are out there. Those are the ones that are really shoring up our businesses. Those are the ones that are walking in every single day, every week, making sure that they buy something that they think is helping them and their family. Well, we need to spend more time educating them. We need to make sure that this current generation of baby boomers, who can be helped, I think, primarily pretty much the most from cannabis, they need to be educated in cannabis. And we need to slow down, take the time to do that.
When you build a brand, Montel, like you're doing with Inspire, do you take that into account from the get-go? You know, I know you don't want to limit yourself to any particular audience. You want everybody to buy your brand, right? But is the education weaved in?
Let me just tell you, my brand, written on every box, is it's about for patients by a patient. I make sure, first off, I'm in Massachusetts right now. I'm soon to be in Georgia. And I will have my national CBD brand back out again in a couple of weeks. But In Boston or in the Massachusetts area, I've already done, I think it's been 40 pop-ups. I go to the dispensaries. I go to them all over the state of Massachusetts, driving sometimes 2-3 hours between one and another, making sure that I stand there myself and let the customer understand that this is something that I formulated, I use myself. This is the reason why I'm doing it. I have literally, and it's not to pat myself on the back, but I have been so deeply involved in studying cannabis, studying phenotypes, studying cultivars, studying terpenes, studying flavonoids over the course of the last 20 years that I've formulated a product that I think, when explained, most of the consumers understand the difference. I'm formulating a product I believe that I want to make sure is as efficacious as it can be, pure as it can be for the patient. But I am one of those believers that I don't care if it's an adult use state or a medical state, everybody turns to cannabis for a medical reason, even if they won't admit it themselves. If your reason for turning to cannabis is because you want to relax when you get home, that's a medical reason. If your reason for turning to cannabis is because you want to sleep better, that's a medical reason. If you want to reduce your anxiety, medical reason. So I want to produce a product that is efficacious for anybody and everybody who wants to take that cannabis journey.
All right, my friend. Well, I know we're going to see you at our conference on April 11th. Again, the Benzinga Cannabis Capital Conference, bzcannabis.com. You can see Montel on the agenda there and learn more about what he's going to be talking about. Montel, I cannot thank you enough for spending a few minutes with us today.
Sure.
And spending time with us in Miami. We look forward to picking up the torch again there, my friend.
Absolutely, my friend. And I'm looking forward to sharing a little bit with your group. I know that we just figured out in the last day or two that I'm going to be one of the speakers. So I know you'll be adding that to the information about what's going on. And I look forward to addressing the audience, the forum, and and I look forward to being with like-minded souls.
We can't wait, Montel. Thank you.
Absolutely. You be well.
You too.
You too. Take care.
Take care. Yes.
I mean, every time that we do one of these segments, I'm just more and more impressed by the sheer firepower that this industry has and has had, right? I mean, my God, Montel's been in the industry for 21 years. And I don't blame him for even sounding like a little frustrated that we're not further along, right? I mean, my God, 21 years, and we have the first major social media engine break down the barrier for cannabis advertising. What do you think?
I mean, this is going to be, like we talked about earlier on the stream, I mean, the first domino falling, Twitter allowing advertising. The next thing you know, you'll see the other social media platforms. I think this is going to be a very big event just in cannabis in general. I see in the comments, we're asking for 9 more likes. I think we can get it. Folks, go ahead and smash that like. Javi, what's I see Javi laughing over there. So Javi, was someone trying to crash our stream over there?
Yes, not crash. We have one last guest. Should we do the thingy for the transition?
No, I don't want the thingy.
No thingy. So last is Simon Pablo Espinosa. He is the CEO of Volá. Volá is the largest cannabis-focused video platform in all of the Spanish-speaking world. They have over 500,000 subscribers on YouTube. Whenever I walk the streets of Chile, whether it's Santiago, Valparaiso, people stop him and shake his hand, ask for pictures. I'm not blowing this up out of proportion. This is very real. They ask him for jokes. So, Simon, tell us a little bit about you, and then we'll get into Twitter.
Hey guys, thank you so much for having me, and congratulations on putting the word out for Twitter. This is a really, really important thing. I'm Simon, as you can see on those letters underneath. And we created 10 years ago what has now become a very, very relevant media, I would say. I think that's what we do. I wouldn't know, really, exactly. But yeah, it's a community. That's actually the most accurate word for what we build down here. It's a massive community of Spanish-speaking cannabis users. That could be medical or adult use, or adult users. And what we've basically done actually is answer to that community in the form of audiovisual content that's at the same time educational, but also humoristic or comic. And I think that's kind of what got us through the shadow ban so far.
You were telling me yesterday, and I had forgotten this part about the story, but Volá actually started like a Twitter-like platform, right? The first iteration of Volá 10 years ago was how was it?
Twitter. Yeah, I was a big Mitch Hedberg fan. You know, the one-liner stand-up comedian. It was a major thing for me, and I kind of I think I wanted to be like him at some point. But so I was all the time like building these one-liners. But I was a big like cannabis user. I was about to say pothead. I'm sorry. Like, and so we would write these like one-liners with my brother, and then one day a friend of us discovered this. He was actually like a super smart guy, living like working at the MIT and kind of thing, like all that ecosystem in Boston. And he told us like, dude, you should really put this out there. And so we did, and people liked it. And now we're like 1.5 million reproductions every month in YouTube only, and Twitter is not actually big for us like last week, but now everyone's working on it. So we're trying to go back to the roots. That's like kind of an interesting thing, like going to those one-liners and try to get them to be another platform for like the rest of our content or another showcase as well. But we've talked about threads a lot too. Yeah.
Very cool. Well, so you've built a community, right? And you've built a community in the same way, or maybe not exactly the same way, but along the same lines as Twitter has, right? Twitter is a community-driven platform. It's based on conversation, right? And you have a community-driven platform of cannabis users. Well, I mean, looking at what Twitter's news is, Simon, right? And the fact that they're now going to not only allow conversation, but allow brands to advertise, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, have you guys done anything to let brands advertise on your platform? Is that not a thing? Help us here, who may not know the regulations in Chile, understand how that works for you.
Yeah, for sure. So that's actually a very good insight. So the way our business model actually was created after the community was set in place was the idea that we could become an asset for the industry, for every brand, product, or service that wanted to engage with this massive community of Spanish-speaking cannabis users and did not have a way to do so. And so we created this company, and now we vertically integrated distribution and an e-commerce platform and many other things that would actually be the infrastructure that brands would use to like physically engage with the final consumer. So that's what we did in first place. And to the point, that was actually the main revenue stream for our company, was brands wanting us to create content for them that was engaging and that was organic and that made sense to the community. And that's like the editorial line. I think it's something that was crucial to this whole mission, to like stay true, I would say. It sounds like one of those like phrases that you would just like go and say, but I think it holds like an important meaning here. And it's actually one of the examples of why you see so many of these celebrity brands like not being successful also, is because they don't have that connection. You might know this better than myself, but that's at least the way we see it.
No, I think that's incredible. And Javi, being in Latin America, right, for the majority of your time, traveling around.
Shit.
You never know, man. Javi, every time we talk to him, he's in a different country. So, but understanding that obviously there's a certain set of regulations there. There's a certain set of regulations here. There's different regulations in Europe. Javi, you've been all over the map, man. What is it like engaging with your users on El Planteo, on Simon's platform, and talking about cannabis?
I mean, it's a challenge to a certain extent, but it's not very different from what happens in North America, right? It starts with education. It goes on. It continues with personality, with being authentic and speaking to a specific audience that starts as a niche and starts to expand, right? And I think that is a perfect segue to discuss Twitter maybe a little bit, right? I think this is the ultimate expansion of this niche toward or for a more mainstream audience, right? It's no longer just Elon Musk making some 420 jokes on Twitter. It's Twitter actually embracing the cannabis community, the cannabis movement, and ultimately the cannabis industry, right? So I want to know what Simon thinks, right? What kind of relevance do you attribute to this move, and what kind of relevance or what do you expect from Twitter executives showing up for the very first time at a public forum at a Benzinga conference, talking about cannabis as well?
Yeah, I think I think I agree with something someone said previously on the podcast. It is a small victory in the way that we are celebrating nothing but like something that you should be entitled to, right? Like it's like a right almost, if in a manner, right? So it's weird that we're celebrating that, but considering context, I think is huge. It's massive. It's also like the overcome of this. It's going to be amazing for companies. It's going to be amazing for projections and collaterals on marketing companies like mine. I think that's one of the things that you can honestly say that scares the shit out of you when you are a media company and you are just like one strike away from getting banned forever from YouTube or any of your biggest platforms that you spend a lot of time building, and that being the main tool to engage your community. So I think this will have a great impact on our community. It's also not enough, I would say, but it's an amazing first move. I hope it will generate what's the word of like a chain effect? I guess that's a like chain
domino
effect, domino effect in other platforms, which from my perspective, I don't know if, I'm sure you're aware of like Social Club or other like kind of like weed-based social platforms that are not mainstream, so kind of a like swimming against the stream or the flow. It's a very like counterintuitive thing to do, especially when you have no means to do so by like paying Google Ads or any of those tools, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I hope this will turn into a more or less hostile environment for companies in the cannabis ecosystem.
So
was that the question?
No, from your mouth to God's ears, man. Go ahead, Elliot.
So just somebody who is very adept in navigating social channels. Twitter has an issue with bots. I think most social platforms have an issue with bots. I don't think Twitter is alone with that. But when it comes to advertising or creating content for cannabis and then working with an organization like Twitter, do you have any advice for how companies can look at the performance of that content, how they can differentiate the true value of what they're getting? With somebody that I'm sure you have to deal with this on your platforms, is there a way that you go about that?
Yeah, that's another really good question. But I guess like one of the things that we've also seen kind of go sideways, not all the times, but many times, is when you're a company that hires like a really good marketing agency that has proven success in different industries, and now they just like kind of, let's look at this money over here from these companies, right? And they will take that and assume that by doing everything else that got like good results somewhere else, they're gonna succeed at this. And that was not entirely true. And I wouldn't presume to know like all the outcomes, but I saw it personally not working quite well. So I would still say that keeping it organic or creating content in Twitter from authorized sources or in the adequate way, it's going to be key. It's at least that's my, like, I could be totally wrong. I'm very wrong so many times a day, but I would say that doing organic content from relevant sources that has actually an impact on the final user, like that might be a good way to proceed. Whereas going on like massive moves, trying to get massive traction or engagement from like more standardized marketing strategies might be, I would say, like bad, but not as efficient, in my opinion.
Unless you guys have any further questions, I would love to close it up with kind of a self-serving question, right? And Volá published
He's the best. I'm not the best. He's the best.
A couple of months ago, Volá published this video recap of our last conference in Miami, and I think it was the best like audio visual recount of what had happened at a Benzinga conference so far. It's awesome. You can go check it out. I think it's got subtitles. Some parts are in English, some parts are in Spanish. You can check it out at Volá on YouTube. My question to Simon is, you know, we've been together to many conferences. We were together at Cannabis last like 2 weeks ago, and at ICBC, an Expo Weed here in Chile, and Expo Cannabis in Argentina, and a bunch of other MJ BizCon. Right? What was your impression from Benzinga? You know, what are your takeaways from a conference like this that is different from most fairs and like expos?
Yeah, so like being a business cannabis conference, in a way, it's already a setup that's kind of not very common for this side of the world, for the cannabis industry on this side of the world. Sorry. So it's always impressive to go to any of these things. Now, Benzinga is a totally different story, and it's like mind blowing, dude. I was blown away by the amount of professionals that had that were actually decision makers and people that could actually generate an impact on your current companies or status. All the investors that were there, and we had a really good experience there, so thank you for that. And I'm glad you guys like the content that we did. It has a lot of views already for this kind of a foreign content for us, in a way. It's kind of it had an amazing welcome. So thank you for that.
Awesome. We'll take that testimonial and run with it.
Yeah,
we will take it, man.
Simon, thank you.
Simon, you are a joy to talk to. We might have to do this like once a week.
Yeah,
because this is fun.
Like, yeah, I love this guy, and what you guys have done is amazing. I'm glad I got to be part of it, and all the luck for this next edition. I'm sure
my friend.
You're gonna do something. Like, this Twitter thing is huge for a conference like in our industry. So
Let's go.
Yeah,
it's absolutely massive. Well, thank you. We really appreciate your time. Take care of our good friend Javier. Again, we don't get to see him much. He's always gallivanting around these different countries, but our love to you both, and be safe.
Yeah, we were just laughing. Yeah. He's one of the friends that I see the most, so we'll see each other. See you.
Oh yeah, well there you go. See you later, guys. So I'll say this to our folks here, Elliot, Aaron Bree, AT, producer AT behind the scenes. Thank you for this segment. Right, this was important to us at Benzinga, and certainly in the life of our conference. Again, if you don't know what I'm talking about, go to bzcannabis.com. Check out that conference that we're going to host April 11th and 12th down at the Fontainebleau Miami Beach. Use the code Twitter to get 35% off your ticket. It is the lowest price ticket that we can offer. So that code, I would use it now, because today is the only day that we'll have that live. But what a massive announcement that Twitter is going to allow cannabis advertising, and that we will be their first public venue to discuss that advertising. Yeah.
Well, yeah, Patrick, thanks for hopping on today. I mean, this was a great special edition of Benzinga Live, kind of merged with Cannabis Insider, however you want to look at it. But either way, I had a lot of fun hanging out with you, hanging out with Elliot.
Back at you, brother.
Hanging out with Javi, all of our great guests today. Elliot, any final last words, or should we wrap here?
So, guys, make sure to tune into Cannabis Insider on the reg. we talk to cannabis execs twice a week. Got to come. We talked to a international marketing exec yesterday. Check it out. There's a playlist on Benzinga Cannabis YouTube. Outside of that, I'm all good. We've already plugged our event enough. With that being said, AB, you're the best, man.
You are.
Woo! Oh, I'm not gonna argue with you there, Elliot. But I'll see you in a couple weeks in Miami. Looking forward to it. Until then, stay chill. We'll be in touch.
Thanks, guys.
Sweet. Later.